You ever heard a ghost story that made the hair on the back of your neck stand up? Yeah, me too. And one of those stories is the tale of La Llorona, also known as the Weeping Woman. The first time I heard it was when I was 19 years old. It was late at night, and my sister and I were staying in a cabin in the woods with some friends. We had a fire going and were hanging out in the backyard, when all of a sudden we heard a blood-curdling scream. My sister and I looked at each other and started to laugh nervously. But then the scream came again. Then again. This time it was closer. When it happened a third time, my sister and I started to panic. What was that sound? Was it an animal? A person? Was it dangerous? As it turns out, the sound was not something we needed to worry about. It was just a girl in the neighboring cabin letting loose with her karaoke machine. But I could not help but think how fitting it was that we were hearing these screams in the middle of nowhere. Because this exact story was popular in Mexico, where my grandparents are from. And I remember thinking, what if she's real? Is she out there somewhere, waiting? I bring this story to you because while researching the origins of Hispanic ghost stories for another project, I came across this folktale yet again. And as it turns out, La Llorona has been scaring the living daylight out of people for hundreds of years. So let's jump into it. There are many versions of La Llorona's story, but they all include the same basic plot points. She is a woman who drowned her children, and then regretted it so much that she spends eternity looking for them. In most tellings, her name is Maria, and she lives in a village with her 2 kids. In every version, she is beautiful, and she knows it. In fact, she's so vain that she refuses to do any housework or parenting. Instead, she spends her days by the river combing her long black hair, admiring her reflection in the water. Now, in some tellings, she's actually a princess. One version even claims she's the daughter of the devil himself. But whether she's a royal or a peasant, she's known for being cold-hearted and cruel. One day she takes her children to the river and tells them to go play. But before long, she gets bored and wants to take a nap, so she ties them up and leaves them alone by the water. In some versions, she falls asleep by the riverbank. In others, she goes home. But either way, her kids get into some trouble. You see, they're not well-behaved children by any means. They're spoiled and mischievous, and they like to explore. And in this particular story, their curiosity leads them to the edge of the river. In some versions, the children start playing with rocks and eventually drift away from the bank. In others, they see a group of older boys playing on the other side of the river and want to join in. No matter which version you hear, the end result is always the same. Both children fall into the water and begin to drown. When Maria realizes what's happened, she rushes to the bank and watches in horror as both of her children disappear beneath the surface. Now, of course, she could save them, right? Like she could just jump into the water and pull them out, but she doesn't. In some tellings, she's overcome with such grief and guilt that she jumps in after them and drowns herself. In others, she does nothing and lets all 3 of them die. Either way, the family is dead. And to make matters worse, she's forever cursed to walk the earth and search for them. Depending on who you ask, La Llorona appears in different places. In some countries, you might find her wandering around cemeteries. Others, she shows up in empty bedrooms. But in Mexico, her usual haunting grounds are rivers and lake shores. This is because the word La Llorona literally translates to the weeping woman. And although she's a ghost, she is never seen without her human body. That is, unless she's looking for new kids to replace her own. Because in some tellings, she doesn't just wander the earth. She actively searches for children to take their place.
Oh.
This is where things get really creepy. Some people claim she only targets children who are playing near the water, just like her own kids. Others say she goes house to house, sneaking in through bedroom windows and suffocating children in their beds, no matter how she finds them, though her motive is always the same. She wants to steal their souls and use them to replace her own. According to lore, she was so overcome with guilt for leaving her children unattended that her soul split into 2 halves. One half continued to wander the earth, searching for her kids and crying out, Mis hijos, which is Spanish for my children. The other half turned evil and wanted revenge on the world for taking her kids away. So depending on which telling you hear, she might be looking for her children out of remorse or out of pure evil. Now, you might be wondering, why would anyone want to replace their child with a ghost? Well, some say she offers mothers a deal. In exchange for their child's soul, she promises to grant them eternal youth and beauty, aka everything that they gave up when they became a mother. Others say she tricks them. She disguises herself as a friend or relative and asks to borrow their kid for just a little bit. Of course, she never gives them back. The truth is, nobody knows exactly what motivates her. That's what makes her so scary. See, like a lot of folktales, the story of La Llorona served as a warning for children. Parents would tell the story to scare their kids into behaving and warned them not to disobey. But as I'm sure you can imagine, the legend took on a life of its own. Adults started reporting hearing her cries too, and some even claimed she was stalking them. So the story evolved into an explanation for random misfortunes. If crops failed or livestock died, some blamed it on La Llorona. If a child disappeared, she was probably to blame. If you heard sobbing in the middle of the night, well, she was probably passing by. And unfortunately, this led to a whole lot of innocent people being persecuted. Like in 1754, a poor farmer from New Spain was accused of being La Llorona. After several children went missing, in addition to having 7 kids of his own, he also cared for his orphan niece and nephew. And after the police suspected him of killing them, he confessed. Not because he did it, but because he didn't want to be tortured for a crime he didn't commit. But as it turns out, the children weren't dead. They had run away from home. Still, the poor guy spent the rest of his life in jail for that false confession. Sadly, this isn't the only case of this. Throughout Latin America, men, women, and children have been accused of being La Llorona. And even today, people are still trying to figure out if she's real or not. That's because her story inspired modern tales of El Chupacabra, aka the goat sucker. As the story goes, La Llorona is tired of looking for her lost children. So she began stealing the souls of animals instead. And some believe that's when she started draining the blood from livestock, hence the nickname. Now, is there any evidence that La Llorona is real? Well, some believe that she may be based on the legend of the Aztec goddess Coyolxauhqui. She was a fertility goddess who was chopped to pieces by her son, the god of the moon. After her death, she was said to wander the earth seeking revenge. Others believe that La Llorona is based on a real woman who drowned her children in a fit of rage. But we may never know for sure. After all, the legend has been passed down orally for centuries. And during that time, details changed and evolved. So is La Llorona real? Well, I'll leave that one up to you. Personally, I don't know. But after hearing this story, I don't think I'd want to find out. Thanks for watching.